Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Iowa City Area Business Partnerships webinar on the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. I'm Kim Casco, President and CEO of the Iowa City Area Business Partnership. It's our mission at the Business Partnership to serve Johnson County's business community, and as we find ourselves in these chaotic times, this mission is more important than ever. The purpose of these webinars is to give you the information you need to determine the next steps for your business as you navigate the numerous resources available. One such resource is the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Today's webinar will focus on loan program details, eligibility, application requirements, as well as where and how to submit an application. There will also be information on counseling assistance available from SBA Resource Partners, such as the Iowa Small Business Development Centers, SCORE, Women in Business Center, and Veterans Business Outreach Center. There are a growing number of resources and options available to small business owners, like these SBA loans, and we encourage you to seek the advice of your banker or financial advisor first to figure out which ones are best for you and your business. A few logistical things before we get started here. Everyone except for myself and our presenters have been muted. There is a lot to cover, and so we're going to get through some slides first with a ton of information and then leave time at the end to answer your questions. As you have questions, please post them to the Q&A section just by clicking on that icon at the bottom of your screen. We know many of you probably also have questions about the state's Small Business Relief Grant and Tax Assistance Program, as well as additional congressional legislation coming out. We're going to focus this webinar on SBA today, but know that we're trying to get information out about those other programs as quickly as possible. This session today will be recorded and we'll post it to our website and our Facebook page later on today. Also, please note that web traffic is high and causing some sound issues and interruptions, and we have a lot of folks joining on the webinar right now, so let's just keep our fingers crossed here and hope for the best. I'd now like to introduce our presenter. Jane Armstrong is the Iowa District Director of the SBA. As the District Director, Jane oversees SBA's financial, business counseling, government contracting programs, and other services throughout the state. We also have with us today Joe Eckert, who's the SBA branch manager in the Cedar Rapids office, as well as Dave Lentel, the lead lender relations specialist at the SBA. Thank you to the both of you for spending time with us today. We know you're super busy right now. And with that, I'm gonna turn things over to Jane and Dave. Oh, they're probably trying to, are you guys trying to unmute yourselves? Let me see if that's something I'm supposed to do. Let's see.
I think you got me unmuted.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This is Jane Armstrong. I just want to thank both of you for having us at this critical time for us to collaborate to get word out to the small business community. To small businesses, I just want to say on behalf of Joe and Dave and our entire SBA team and all of our resource partners that we're all in this together. This really hit us hard last week, you know, that it hit really quickly. And there's a lot of things that are very, very fluid. And we want you to just try to bear with us. We know that it's a crisis situation for many small businesses, but we are all in your corner. And you know, we very much consider at the SBA that we work for you, and we're going to get through this together. So as I go through right now, we want to talk about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program today. And we're going to go through eligibility, and then Dave's going to go through the actual application and answer some questions. But we want everybody to understand that all this is constantly changing. I mean, even while we were sitting here getting ready, we got an announcement about something that's getting ready to come out, but we can't announce yet. So also with Congress, with the legislation that is being voted on today, there's a lot of new programs and incentives that will likely come out for small businesses. So we want to walk through this particular program. And I know a lot of people are asking because it is a loan program. Yes, it is a loan program, but there could be some changes to it throughout the life of it. And there's going to be other things that are coming down the pike too that will complement it or will be in place of it for many businesses. But the important thing is that you will have options. So we want to just walk through this. And thank you again to Iowa City Area Development Group and everybody at the Chamber. We really appreciate your collaboration and your ongoing support and commitment to small business as well. So Dave, if you want to go ahead to the next one. This just is SBA's administrator right now, I'll tell you, is working behind the scenes very feverishly with our entire team, trying to look at ways that they can adapt some different things. This is an unprecedented situation that we are in because we have never had a disaster of this magnitude, even after 9/11, for those of us that were at the SBA at the time going through this. We have all 50 states declared and 30 million small businesses across the country, that many that have been affected by this. So we really want to ask that you please try to be patient. We know everybody's in a crisis situation, but there's going to be some challenges as we go forward with this, but we're only really a week or two into this. And there's a lot of things that have already happened very, very quickly, but there's going to be more to come. But we just want you to understand what this disaster program is and what it can do to help your business. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, just so you know, there's a separate division of the SBA anytime we have a federally declared disaster, that they are they do financing. We're the part of the rebuilding process, and we become the nation's disaster bank to help businesses get back on their feet. Now, in the case of this disaster, eligible businesses will be nonprofits and small businesses, but I will get into that. So, so looking at some of the basics of this program, this program is specifically for small businesses, agricultural cooperatives, small aquaculture businesses, and that is the one distinction within on the agricultural side, that it's aquaculture. And the reason is that SBA traditionally does not do agricultural specific loans because of the Farm Service Agency and some other USDA and some other programs that are out there, that we stay within our lane with the small businesses. But small aquacultural businesses are allowed under this too. And then most private nonprofit organizations, we have been getting questions about this on what is eligible and what isn't. And I'll get into that too, what we want businesses to, or nonprofits to do to get that clarification. This includes businesses directly affected by the disaster, and then all of those are in the supply chain that are directly or indirectly impacted as well. And application link, I'm sorry. Other businesses, one example that we have here too might be the wholesaler and retailer in addition to the manufacturer. Okay, Dave, thanks. So the main criteria that they're looking at for the loan approval is the credit history of the business and the repayment terms. And then also looking at the eligibility, and we'll delve into this in a little bit more detail. The loan terms, you can go up to, these loans go up to $2 million. The interest rates are 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for nonprofit organizations. And all of these loans go out 30 years. Now, there's a constant, there could possibly be changes to these interest rates. We don't have anything definitive yet. This is set by statute. So because we're in this situation, there could be some things in the congressional legislation that's coming out that there could be some changes to that. But right now that is set at 3.75%. eligibility for these working capital loans are based on the size of the business. Most small businesses that we work with are very, very small, but there is a definition of 500 or less that a lot of people use. There are some industries in the in different industry sectors under their NAICS codes that we do look at affiliates and different things too. So if somebody's a manufacturing concern and they have some different operations or different affiliates, we do have to factor that in to determine if they're a small business. But for purposes of what we're talking about today, practically everybody we're talking to is going to be, within those guidelines of being a small business. So you can use these funds to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills that could have been paid if the disaster had not occurred. Now, these loans aren't meant to replace lost sales or profits or to do anything with an expansion of the business. They are specifically tied to the disaster, the COVID disaster and all the shutdowns. Dave, sorry. Thank you. So what are some of the terms of this loan? So they go up to $2 million, as we mentioned, but loans over $25,000 do require collateral. Now, SBA has waived the requirement that has been in place with some other deals with that you no longer have to pledge any personal real estate if it was available. So want to make sure that everybody understands that we do not decline a loan for lack of collateral, but if there is any collateral available from the business, that it is pledged for the business, depending on the situation. When we look at this with the criteria or some of the eligibility of what types of businesses, pretty much every business out there right now is hurting and has been impacted by this entire shutdown as we know it. So that's just an example. Dave, I'm sorry, the last part of that with the eligibility, now every state has been declared. There was some confusion at the end of the week just because of how the declarations were coming out, because some states were approved ahead of us and had adjoining counties, but that doesn't matter anymore. The entire country is declared a disaster right now. So these loans are different. If you have an SBA loan, you're used to, you know that we don't do direct lending, that we do government guaranteed loans through the banks. This is different. Economic injury disaster loans come directly. You actually apply directly to the SBA through our disaster office. You do not go through a bank, and the funds come directly from the U.S. Treasury. So there's no cost involved with the application. And want to emphasize this, because this has been coming up a lot this week. There's no obligation to take the loan if offered. We are encouraging businesses, if you have had some losses with this disaster and all the shutdowns, we are encouraging you to go ahead and apply for this loan once the system gets back up. As they mentioned, we've had some challenges today because of the demand. But you're not required to take the loan if you apply and you're approved. We are seeing a lot of different things come out. I want to thank Debbie Durham at IEDA and the Governor Reynolds for their leadership and the programs that they have initiated, the 2 grant programs. And a lot of businesses are applying for both. If you get a grant if you have a grant from the state or from a local entity, the local economic development group, some communities are doing some emergency grant funds. That does not mean that you're not eligible for this SBA loan. We have been getting that question a lot, and it does not impact your eligibility for the SBA loan. So say you're approved for a $100,000 loan and you get a $20,000 grant, it might lower the amount that you get from the SBA because you did have that emergency grant to help to shore up some of your losses. So that's the only thing, but it does not deter you from being approved or to apply for an SBA loan. So if you have an existing SBA disaster loan, you can still qualify. We get this a lot, and I'm kind of surprised by this, but we get this question a lot, that people think if they already have an SBA loan, they can't have another one. And all my years with the SBA, I've seen a lot of businesses that have anywhere from 4 to 7 SBA loans. They could have a loan for real estate, a loan for working capital, a loan for disaster, oops, another disaster, they have another loan. So it's not uncommon for people to have multiple SBA loans. But if you have an existing one, these loans cannot be consolidated. But one move that the administrator made this week, and we really applaud her for it, is everybody that has an existing SBA disaster loan, your loans are being deferred through the end of 2020. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to reach out to the SBA. It has been done automatically for you. So we've had a lot of businesses that are still paying disaster loans from the flooding from 10 years ago, and then also the more recent floods and the past year. So just want to make sure that you know that those loans are deferred. So also too, we want to, before we get into the applications and the basic filing requirements, I do want to mention 2 things. We are, you do have the option, and all of these different things, our loan program, assistance through the banks or through local entities. A lot of this might be a moot point when we see what happens with the congressional legislation that's coming out. This relief package has a lot in it for small businesses, and but we don't know. We can't talk about it yet at the SBA because it hasn't been passed yet. The final bill has not been approved. Well, it might be right now on TV. I don't know, but I know that they're voting on it today. And then it's supposed to be reconciled. But there are definitely going to be some nice programs and incentives that will be very beneficial to small business, that we just have to see how they would collaborate with the programs that we already have in place. But I do want to mention to you that we have been encouraging businesses to still go ahead and apply. You can always, if you end up getting other programs that meet your needs better, or all of your needs are met through other resources, you do not have to accept that SBA loan if it's approved. You can always cancel it and or just not accept it. And so we wanted to make sure everybody knows that, and you have those options. The right now too, as an ongoing basis, we just have encouraged, I know a lot of the banks are in this with us. A lot of the banks are reaching out to their business clients and just doing a heck of a job helping to keep the businesses alive. But you also have an option with existing SBA loans that the bank can possibly consider doing up to 6 months of deferment on an existing SBA loan. Now, I think a lot of us should just sit back and see what comes out of Congress and what bills are coming down the pike, or what some of these programs are. But in the meantime, you might want to, we are encouraging you to contact the SBA. Dave, I know we're getting into the application. I do want to mention to everybody, there's a couple key contacts that you need to know. The SBA Disaster Assistance Customer Service Center is absolutely critical in this. They're the ones that are doing the processing. The phone number there is 1-800-659-2955. 1-800-659-2955, or the email address is disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Disaster.
Jane, go ahead and go through these slides because
Okay.
these are just some basic filing requirements. We'll
Okay.
have some slides on those phone
Okay.
numbers and emails
Okay.
coming up.
Okay, great. But I just wanted to mention that because we're, they're critical, and we're encouraging everybody, especially with the email might be a quicker because of the demand. So here are some of the basic filing requirements. They're just really standard. If you were getting a conventional loan or getting an SBA loan, some information that you would need. SBA has waived the tax return requirement. So you just have the application, a request form for SBA to be able to contact IRS for tax information, a schedule of liabilities, and a personal financial statement. And those forms are all on the site. There may be some additional things that they come back and ask for, but the requirements we just went over are the basic forms, and again, they're all on that site. And again, we want to emphasize too that there is constantly some things going on where they're trying to streamline this and make it easier for everybody based on the demand that we're getting. So just bear with us. We've never seen a disaster of this size, you guys. What are some of the businesses that are ineligible? And this is standard on all SBA loan. I mentioned before about the agricultural enterprises, that we leave that to the other organizations, that USDA and Farm Service Administration with what they do with, but there are some areas that we tie into. But as far as the main agricultural focuses, we do rely on those agencies. Religious organizations, charitable organizations, and anything gambling concerns or casinos and racetracks are not eligible for SBA for this program. So how do you apply? I'm sorry, Dave, I got ahead of myself. Here's the information on, I know we've been putting this out widely, but the disasterloan.sba.gov address is where you apply online. I do understand and sincerely apologize that today the system has been a little bit overloaded. We are all having problems across the board with some of these systems because of the demand. We have 31 million small businesses in America and 50 states that are declared in this disaster. We just ask that you bear with us. They're working on it, and keep checking back. It has been very, very busy, you guys. So we're asking people, you might want to go during some off hours in the evenings or something, or early in the morning to go in to apply. Paper loan applications, we prefer everything is online, but if somebody does need to submit a paper application, there's the address in Fort Worth to send it to our processing center. We are also asking any eligibility questions that you have the customer service number there. They have been very, very busy. We are recommending people look at the email address, the disaster customer service at sba.gov, that it may be a quicker response on that, a little bit less demand than the 800 number. Oh, this is absolutely critical. Our resource partners, as they always are, just in a regular economy, but during this crisis, they're extremely important. We have 4 resource partners, the Small Business Development Centers, the 4 SCORE chapters, the Women's Business Center, and the Veterans Business Outreach Center. So those 4 entities are the counseling and training arm of the SBA. So they're particularly important during this time. Some of you already have counselors set up or mentors through them. We encourage you to go back to them if you need anything with financial assistance, financial projections, any counseling that you might need. They are doing a lot of online counseling right now, and so there's their information for you to contact them to set up. And they've been reaching out, doing a tremendous job working with small businesses to match up with their needs. We're really encouraging everybody to submit as soon as possible, even if you decide something is more attractive, and you can always cancel it down the road. But we want you to recheck the filing requirements to make sure that all your information is submitted. The biggest reasons why there might be a delay, besides 30 million businesses applying in 50 states, is that, due to missing information. So as long as that, all those forms are included and everything, you should have a complete application. If for any reason a loan request was denied, you will be given up to 6 months in which to provide new information, submit another request for consideration. Want to mention too, that this is definitely one area to look at with the congressional legislation that's coming out, that there will be some backup plans with this. If the business needs more funds, because the disaster office is determining based on what you're putting down as your losses and everything, they will determine the size of the loan. If you need more funds, you can always submit supporting documents and go back and ask for a request an increase in funding. If you need less than what you're being offered, you can always ask for a reduction as well. Okay, I'll turn it over to Dave Lintel, who's our lead lender relations specialist and our resident expert in everything SBA loans.
Thank you, Jane. As Jane mentioned, currently the disaster loan application portal is down. If you log into it today, you'll see the portal will be undergoing maintenance message. We apologize for that, but I do want to go through just a few screenshots, share with you what it looks like, give you some guidance in navigating this. So when you do log in, you will see a page that looks like this. There's actually two paths in the application portal. There's the SBA Form 5 path for all business entity organizations other than sole proprietorships, and the Form 5C, which is just for sole proprietorships, and it'll automatically carry you into that. But what we're going to take a look at today is the Form 5 path. They're very similar. There's a lot of the same type of information that is asked, but we're going to take a look at the Form 5 path. Again, as Jane mentioned, the filing requirements, the Form 5 for everything but everything but sole proprietorships, and that does include nonprofits. The Form 5C, which is sole proprietorship only. The Form 4506T tax authorization. We are no longer requesting business tax returns at application, but we may come back and ask for them later. Personal financial statement. If you have your own personal financial statement available, you can upload it into the system. Otherwise, you can enter the information in the SBA Form 413 that is part of the system. All owners 20% or more required to provide a personal financial statement. Schedule of liabilities, again, like the Form 413. If you have your own, you can upload it. Otherwise, you can use our online form. So the first thing you want to do is click Apply Online, and it will take you to our registration page. You'll begin a new application by clicking on Register. It's going to ask for a username and password. I know that we're supposed to tell you not to write down your username and password, but you really should do that. And the reason that I say that is because if you forget your username, you're not going to be able to request a password reset. And as bogged down as the Disaster Loan Customer Service Center is right now, getting your username back from them so that you can do a password reset is taking an inordinate amount of time. So please keep your username and password in a safe place, but write it down where you don't lose it. You want to complete the registration information. I know some of these screenshots are a little hard to see, but just know that any section that has an asterisk, a red asterisk, must be completed. You want to make sure that you provide a good email address and a cell phone number where we can easily reach you once a loan officer has been assigned to your case. Again, keep that username and password in a safe place, but make sure that you don't forget it, because it's going to be difficult to recover that. Once you have a username and password, you've got your account set up, you can click Apply Online, and you'll double click on the business and nonprofit application. This system is not only for economic injury disaster loans, but is for physical disaster loans as well. There are some physical disaster loan declarations that are out there. People would use this same platform for those, and homeowners and renters are eligible for physical assistance, so that's why that's on there. But you want to make sure you click on the businesses and nonprofits button. For business type, this is where you decide which path the system is going to take you down. If you're a sole proprietorship, you'll mark sole proprietorship. It's the first option that you have, and you definitely want to make sure that you are clicking economic injury, the idle loan. If you can see it, you'll see that real property, business contents, and military reservists are a couple of the other options. If you click any of those, you're requesting the wrong thing, and you're not going to be able to get through this application properly. If you are a corporation, partnership, nonprofit, anything other than a sole proprietorship, you'll check the appropriate box and then click Next. And it will then ask you for your state and your county. And then based on that, it will offer you the disaster declaration. You will want to make sure that you are picking the Iowa COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan Declaration. It's going to ask you to complete some certifications, that the information you are submitting is truthful to your knowledge, and then some additional bylaws and executive order requirements that come with any type of loan application. Essentially the legal fine print, so to speak. You'll start that application. Again, this example is for a limited liability company, but there's 7 sections that you will work through, and you'll click Start there at the top with the disaster business loan application, and it'll start to walk you through the Form 5. Again, items with a red asterisk are a mandatory field. You'll not be able to advance into the next section until those sections are complete. One thing I do want to point out is it's a little hard to see again here on the screen, but question 16 for the Form 5, do you own more than 50%, or are you a managing member or partner of a corporation, partnership, limited partnership, LLC? What this question is asking is, does your business own 50% or more of another business? Remember, unless you're a sole proprietorship applying under a DBA, you are applying as the business, not as the individual. So for corporations, LLCs, etc., you're applying as the business. So don't mistake this question as if it's asking if you personally own 50% or more of another business. This is asking if your business owns 50% or more of another business. This has been causing some errors in application, and we just wanted to make sure to point it out. Again, you'll continue working through. It's going to ask all members of the business with a percentage of their ownership until the combined entries equal 100%. This is where you would enter all of your partner information. You do have an opportunity on page 3 if you want to write in any relevant comments to the ownership structure, which may be particularly useful if you get into a situation where you have multiple ownerships. We've got some situations like ESOPs where you may have 101% owners. That can get kind of complicated, and you have the opportunity to add some comments to that. Once you've completed the Form 5, you'll see a little green check there that your disaster loan application has been completed, and now you're ready to move into the different forms that need to be submitted and uploaded. That includes the personal financial statement. Again, you can upload your own, scan it in and upload it as a PDF, or you can use this online form to enter your information. The same with your personal assets and debits. You need to provide the information on that. Your schedule of liabilities. Again, you can upload your own document, or you can complete it within the system. It's going to ask you about business losses. Again, you want to make sure that you are picking the organization that best describes your business, whether that's a sole proprietorship or one of the other entities. And again, make sure that you are selecting economic injury. One thing I want to point out in the application, nowhere in the application is there a place to enter a specific requested amount. The loan officer reviewing your application is going to determine the eligible amount from the revenue shortfall versus your normal outlays. So what do we mean by that? The loan amount is going to be based on your business's total monthly expenses. And right now, the total loan amount is being based on a 6-month need. So for example, if it's determined that a business's monthly expenses are $10,000, just as an example, then it would potentially be eligible for a $60,000 economic injury disaster loan. If there's additional economic impact, Jane had mentioned this previously, say a business continues to suffer loss of revenue beyond the 6 months that the funding is accounted for, approved borrowers can always submit additional financials and documentations to request an increase from SBA. You want to upload your 4506T. You can download this form, sign it, scan it, and then save it on your desktop and then upload it. Or you can electronically file your 4506T within the system. One thing to remember on this, if you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to file your 4506T under your personal name. If you are a business, you are going to file that 4506T under your business name. So, we've got Chadwick G. Nelson here. If he were to submit a 4506T under his name, IRS is probably going to come back to SBA and say we couldn't find one for him. But he would need to put in like ABC Company, because that's the company that the tax returns are based under. You want to make sure that you're putting in the information for the tax transcript that the application corresponds back to. You will get a message that your document has been successfully uploaded, or in the case of an electronic application, that your transmittal was successful. Tax returns, again, we are not, I should have taken this slide out, we are not requiring tax returns to be uploaded as part of the application. I've not been able to confirm that you can skip this screen. I suspect that perhaps they have taken this screen out, but just remember that SBA can still come back to you and ask for you to submit your tax returns if that's something we think we need to see in order to make a better determination of what your loan amount should be. Again, you'll have some additional certificates of truthful information. As you go through this, each one of these will have a green check by it and let you know that you have completed your filing requirements. When you click submit, you will get a message back that says application submission confirmation, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but we just want to make sure that you are aware that you've got a submission confirmation once you sent that. Anytime you have the opportunity to save a section that you are in as you go through it, we highly encourage you to do so, because again, with the massive number of businesses that are applying, unfortunately the system does crash occasionally, and you don't want to lose what you have already submitted. If you are not able to complete your application in one sitting, and to manage expectations, most folks aren't, you can log out and input your username and password to log back in and complete a started application. You would just simply, you'll see in this particular example that the status is not submitted, and you can just hit continue to pick up back where you left off. The very last thing that you will do once you have completed is press the submit button at the bottom. You should have green check marks in every other box. You can then click submit. And again, you'll get that submission confirmation, and you'll get an application number. I encourage you to print that out, write it down, take a picture of it on your phone, whatever you need to do, so that you know what your application number is and you have it handy at all times. Say you're out of the house, out of the office, wherever, and SBA calls you about your loan application. They ask you for your application number. You want to have it on hand. You can go into the message center at any time to see messages that may have been sent to you by SBA. And after completing the application, you will automatically return to the home page. You can log in to this section at any time and check the status of your application by clicking the status icon. What you are looking for after your loan has been submitted is the message that says it's been received and it's in review. That is what you're looking for. That gets you in line to be assigned an SBA loan officer, who will then be reaching out to you to work with you further on your loan application. You will also get this application status message that it is received and in review, and what we're working for at the end of the day, current application status approved. Right now we're being told that from application received to approval is taking 2 to 3 weeks, with an additional week for funding to be dispersed. That is what they are telling us, but please bear in mind the tremendous demand on the system at this time. Those expectations may change as we get further into it, but that's what they're telling us at this time. Again, as Jane mentioned, if you have questions about the application, if you are having a technical issue, we would have to refer you to the Disaster Customer Service Center. If you have a specific question about, okay, you know, I've got 3 different types of businesses, they're all under separate corporations, how should I structure this application? Again, you're going to have to reach out to the Disaster Customer Service Center to get their input. You can call that phone number. I do know that, as Jane mentioned, tremendous demand on that right now. You may be better off using the email there. Just know you will get an automated response that kind of looks like it's just a form letter with just some basic information on the program, but someone will be following up with your email eventually. I don't have a time frame on that. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing so we can take a look at the chats and the questions areas and answer any questions that folks have.
Jennifer's already answered all the questions.
Great.
No, I
Not
do
quite.
see about,
Not quite.
we've got about 7 out there, kind of open questions. And so Dave and Jane, we've got about 10 minutes or so left here. If you don't mind, just kind of looking through those, maybe starting at the top. I see one that came in around, will technology companies have separate collateral agreements, as most collateral or assets held is the company's IP?
I am not in a position to answer that question. All I know is what they are asking for as far as collateral is all available business assets. So whatever those business assets may be would have to be pledged. That's the best answer I can give you. If you need something more specific than that, you can email the Disaster Customer Service Center and see what kind of response you get back from them. I see, is there an ownership requirement on SBA Form 413? Yes. I'm not real sure what you're asking there 100%, but you know, in any situation where let's say we have a business where there's less than, you know, all owners are less than 20%, or a situation where you have, you know, like I said, with an ESOP where you have 100 owners at 1%, at least one individual has to be on the loan application as a primary principal. You don't have a personal financial statement for 413 as an ESOP, which we were just talking about. You can still qualify, but you're going to have to upload something as far as financials, and there is at least one individual who is going to have to come on as the personal guarantor and provide principal information, and that individual is probably going to have to fill out a Form 413. So someone in the ESOP is going to have to step up and be willing to do that for an ESOP to be eligible. Can we use a bank form, the personal financial statement? Absolutely, so long as it is signed and dated. You can scan that in and upload that. Financial statement, just the business owner, not the spouse if they are not partner owners in the business. For regular SBA loans, we do need the spouse to sign and date financial statements. We may come back and ask for the spouse's personal financial statement, but I don't believe at this time you would need to upload that. What does the tax authorization form refer to? That's the 4506T. That gives your permission to the SBA to go to the IRS and get a copy of your tax transcripts. Essentially, what we are doing is confirming that you have paid your taxes, and we're getting a upper level picture of your businesses and your personal financial situation, so that we can use that information to help determine your loan amount. How soon upon acceptance would funding be received? Again, they're telling us 2 to 3 weeks for a decision on the loan application from the time that you submit a completed application, and then an additional week after approval for funding to be received. And I think we have a similar question there from time the application is submitted.
Hey, Dave,
soon?
can I?
Yeah.
We just all need to recognize, you know, for the state program that is going through IEDA, they have applicants from all over the state. And for this SBA one, we have every state in this country declared, and almost 30 million small businesses across America. We don't know how many are applying, but it's going to be very overwhelming. So we just need everybody to be patient. They are working out some things behind the scenes, trying to look for ways to continuously improve so that we can meet the demand. So There are some improvements coming down the pike, but it's, you know, they want to get those approved a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, they're trying to streamline this as much as they can. Um, just to maybe it's not important, but just as some background, economic injury disaster loans were designed to be a second tier level of assistance. Typically, a disaster is a physical disaster with a very definitive end. A hurricane, a tornado, a flood. Um, FEMA, SBA physical disaster loans are used to help with immediate recovery, and then the economic injury disaster loans come in and help make businesses whole from a economic standpoint at the conclusion. It's very easy to say, okay, my business was shut down for 2 months. Here's what my monthly expenses would have been. It's very easy to determine what that loan amount's going to be. We're trying to use EIDL right now until some other things come online as a first response economic assistance tool, and it's for a disaster that is continuing to occur, and we're not sure when the end point is going to be. So we're all kind of learning as we go and trying to make this program fit as best we can. So as Jane said, there'll be continual changes to it as we move forward. Going back to the questions, if you have 2 or more locations, regardless of where they are, even if they're in a different state, because as Jane said, all counties in every state in the nation are eligible. What you want to do, regardless of how many locations that you have, is select one as your quote unquote corporate headquarters and apply for the loan in that particular state, in that particular county for your primary location. You'll certainly, if there's not areas within the online application to talk about your additional locations, you'll have the opportunity to discuss that with the loan officer. What does it mean businesses with credit elsewhere are not eligible? Okay, what that means is, does the small business and or the owners of that business have the financial ability to overcome the disaster without SBA? So really, the example that Office of Disaster Assistance gives us when we've asked that question is, if the business or the owner of the business has $1 million sitting in a bank account, and they're not going to be able to come and ask SBA for a loan because they have the immediate liquid assets to overcome the disaster on their own. An existing line of credit, even if it's untapped, is not going to be calculated as part of that credit elsewhere. We're talking about liquid assets that you already have in available that you can tap, as opposed to other financing that you may have already had in place prior to the disaster. How long will the SBA site be undergoing maintenance? I wish I could answer that. I have asked several times today for updates, and what I am getting back is we are working on it. Again, we apologize profusely. Having it down all day is not good customer service, but I suspect they are making some changes to the loan application to try and streamline this in preparation for some of the things that were part of the new congressional things that are coming out. That's my guess on that. When are the applications due? Small businesses have until December 2020 to apply for these loans. And that's all the questions I see right now. Do you guys see any others that I have missed?
No, I think you covered them all there, Dave. Thank you so much for running through those, and Jane as well. We know that you're both incredibly swamped right now and doing the best that you can. And so we appreciate you spending time with us here today, digging through that. I'm going to try and share a slide here that has some resources. I know, again, some folks have had questions about the IEDA grant and tax assistance program. And so I'm going to pull up just a quick website on that. Let's scroll through there. And so they've got, IEDA has more information about that on their website, iowaeconomicdevelopment.com/relief grants. Now the application deadline for that is Tuesday, March 31st at 12 p.m. They are clarifying, on this page that this program is not first come, first serve. So I think they too are experiencing high volume, but there is a deadline for that, and that's next Tuesday. I also, while I have a couple minutes left here, wanted to have Jenny Banta, our VP of Advocacy and Community Development, chime in on just a quick update on what we know about the CARES Act that will hopefully come through tomorrow.
Yes, so thank you, Kim. I just wanted to give a quick update. And again, just prefacing, this is not signed into law yet. This is all still being negotiated and discussed. So early this morning, Senate and the White House came to an agreement on a phase 3 stimulus deal. The phase 3 stimulus deal, like Kim mentioned, is being referred to as the CARES Act, and it's a $2 trillion stimulus package that expands relief to our healthcare system, small businesses, workers, local and state governments, and really is very expansive. And so although this legislation has 60 votes for supermajority in the Senate, its outcome is still unclear because it needs to go through the House. And so just to outline a few things that will be included in that. I mentioned healthcare, so $100 billion for new programs to provide direct aid to healthcare institutions, which we know is very important here in Iowa City and Johnson County as our university hospital struggles to meet the demands of this COVID virus. I'm sure the thing that you've heard about in the news is the direct checks. Under this plan, people making under $75,000 a year will get checks of $1,200. Couples making up to $150,000 will receive $2,400, and children, any additional children, will receive $500. So again, this is all proposed, but I think that will add some extra benefit to families who are struggling right now. Small business relief, $1 billion for the Defense Production Act to bolster domestic supply chains. So definitely something that we're feeling the impact of right now is doing business across borders. $562 million for the Small Business Administration, and for funding of the loans like you've just heard about. There are a myriad of community and state relief dollars being proposed, everything from additional money to SNAP to homelessness assistance. So you can read more about this. I'm working on a very lengthy post. If you get into the details like I do, that will be out on our website tomorrow. And so be looking for it there, and then also on our social media channels. I hope that wasn't too much, Kim.
No, that was great. Thank you, Jenny. As she mentioned, we're trying to push information out as quickly as possible. We are working very closely with our peer organizations right now, Iowa City Area Development Group, Iowa City Downtown District, and Think Iowa City. We've got a a regular newsletter, e-newsletter going out right now titled We're All in This Together. And so if you are a member of the business partnership, you should be getting that. Please make sure to check your junk and spam folders. If you would like to receive this newsletter, if you're not, or if you have any questions about which resources to turn to, please don't hesitate to call us or email us at info@iowacity.area.com. I want to thank again Jane and Dave from SBA, and thank you all for attending this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.